Hello, world, and welcome to another voice note from France, a podcast where I look beyond the Instagram highlight reel to find out what it's really like to start a new life in another country. In today's episode, we'll be meeting my friend Schon, who left Trinidad for France and made the transition from language assistant to caviste. No worries if you don't know what a caviste is, you'll learn more during this episode. Today's voice note is certainly a departure from how I've previously conducted this podcast. As promised based on the title, we talk about everything, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Sound we get.
Okay, perfect.
Should be fine.
Hi, my name is Sean. Okay, it's fine.
That's a good place to start with. So tell the people who you are.
Okay, so my name is Sean. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. For those of you who don't know, it's about 11 kilometers north of Venezuela, a twin island state. And I first came here as an English assistant. Like Daniel. Comme Daniel. Sorry, I do lots of Franglish.
But your French is amazing, so I'm jealous.
Oh, don't be jealous. It's a lot of hard work. To get my French where it is, sorry, I took a decision very early on to not have English speaking friends.
Which is advice that you told me the first time we talked, and I clearly did not make that change.
Yeah, because immersion means immersion, right? So either you do it or you don't. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, unfortunately, I don't think the listeners will know French,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, trust me, his French is fantastic. Okay, so you came here, you worked as a language assistant.
Yeah.
And how long did you do that for?
5 years, because it's been 7 years I've been here. So yeah, 5 years.
Oh, okay.
I did 3 years in Corbeil-Essonnes, so it's just to the south of Paris, and then I did 2 years in Paris.
Okay. All right, cool. What was that experience like?
Pretty good. It was a bit difficult because French school and the Trinidadian school is so different. You can see that in France, there's a lot of independence with students. They have the freedom to do and say lots of things. It's not as, I don't want to say militant, but it's not as, I mean, in Trinidad we have uniforms and everything has to follow this set of rules and guidelines. In France, you can wear whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, kind of, as long as you respect your authority and all of the rules of the school. And it was a bit difficult in the beginning to really have the teacher role because I only had high schoolers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I actually never thought of it like that. I feel like French schools are actually pretty restricted.
Yeah, no, I would, don't worry.
But which also points for experience. Currently, Sean has me at his place of work, which is a cab stop surrounded by liquor, and he's also provided a beverage.
Yes.
I also drank with somebody else on this podcast, but I mean, points for experience. I was in their house. So, but I do agree with you because I think that French schools, it's like, yeah, the children are free, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, this feels worse. Like they're in school till like the middle of the night. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is actually terrible.
But they also have a lot more vacation. So
True.
every 6 to 7 weeks, they have 2 weeks vacation, which I think is probably a better system because in Trinidad, you can have school terms that go from 13 to 15 weeks without a single break.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like there, I remember I started school at 7:25 every morning, and then I left at 2 something, but then you don't really have breaks.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
our lunch wasn't even an hour, I think. It was like 45 minutes. 50 minutes. My lunch was 50 minutes, I think. Like grand max, as we say.
Mhm.
And we did have a break, but our break was like 10 minutes. Whereas here, generally, the break is 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It depends. And then your lunch hour is supposed to be,
Like 2 hours long or something.
sometimes it's 2 hours, but the legal minimum is half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you have to give people the time to go to the canteen and to get their meals prepared. And that's another thing that we have in France that we don't have in Trinidad, for example. Either you come with your meals prepared or you buy something, whereas in France you have the canteen. And so you pay your, how do you say, abonnement?
Subscription?
Subscription. Gosh, I'm losing my English, guys.
But see, this is my point.
Because I live in French, which is the very strange thing. Like my entire life is in French, so it's very difficult sometimes just to switch back to English, even though it's my native language.
I need to
Yeah.
elevate to that level, honestly.
Uh, it takes a lot of work, a lot of immersion.
Yeah, yeah. Stop! Don't look at me. I know I'm ashamed. I
No,
know.
don't be ashamed. Just,
Make the changes.
yeah. But I mean, everyone has their technique. Everyone has their version. For example, when I first came here, I tried really hard to have the purest French accent possible, and I succeeded at it. And then someone said to me, "But you don't have to force it every time, because part of the beauty of having learned another language is that you put you into the language."
Oh, okay.
And so instead of trying to become more French, I made French part of me. And so I decided to basically not try to get a perfect French accent anymore. Or because, I mean, that takes effort. It really does take effort.
Yeah, because you have to understand a lot about phonetics and things in order to do
Exactly.
it.
I was about to talk about phonology
Please.
because for those who don't know, phonology is something that happens when you're very young. So your mouth adapts automatically to the language that you're speaking when you're very young. And so your mouth continues to shape according to the language that you're speaking and how you internalize those sounds and all of those different things. And so it's very hard afterwards to change that. And so anyone who is adept to speaking a language like French, where we have a very restrictive phonology of the mouth, I mean, it's really hard. Whereas in English, you open your mouth quite big to make sounds. I had an easier time, I think, because first of all, I can do ventriloquism.
Really?
Yeah, I can.
I'm just learning. This is
Look at this.
amazing.
I can speak exactly as I'm using my mouth.
Holy crap.
So yeah, that's fine. But I never really I wasn't a person who used my mouth like in a wide sense. So even when I speak English, you can look at my
Yeah,
mouth
I'm
here.
literally looking at you and I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
I
your
don't.
mouth is pretty in
Yeah,
comparison to mine, and
it's
I'm not
it's
looking at
very
anything.
yeah, it's very small. I don't it's like people who do the THs and I see their tongue and I'm like, but you can think like this, like
Yeah, you
you
don't
don't
have to.
need to.
Yeah. Oh no, no.
But
I only exaggerated when I'm like trying to explain to like French children, like it's supposed to
right.
be like this,
Mm.
that. But yeah, for
But
those
lots
who
of
don't know,
Americans speak like that, for example. Like you see their tongue and I'm like, why? Like why?
they're working hard. They're working hard. Oh man. But I mean, like that's so amazing, and I mean, I think that obviously you should like learn phonetics.
Yeah,
I did a voice course in Jamaica for obviously in English, and that's
right.
why I know about phonetics. And then I got interested in like I want to get into learning French phonetics just to
Hmm.
like improve.
Yeah,
Eventually, I'll get around to that. There are classes to Mary,
yeah,
I'll get there. But I do think that is interesting just because I know that like yeah, that's gonna affect your accent if you
right.
can't make certain sounds or you can't distinguish between
Of
certain
course.
sounds.
It's like, for example, there's in French, there's the tu vas bien and tout va bien.
Yeah.
And tu vas bien is are you doing well? And tout va bien is everything going okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of English speakers can't distinguish between the two sounds. And luckily, like if you ask someone tout va bien or tu vas bien, it's basically the same thing in French. It's like saying
Yeah.
ça va, ça va. But it's really interesting because even that sound tu only exists in French. It doesn't exist in any other language. The U,
Ah, okay.
it
Yeah,
exists
yeah.
only in French. And what's interesting is to really get that sound, there's a very simple exercise. You can say e and then you close your mouth. E, e,
Ew.
e,
Okay.
e.
Ew.
Right. Because
Like
actually
that.
the U is a function of the I in French,
Really?
which is really funny, but yeah.
I love how the world is now gonna listen to like me like taking this French class. I'm like, what?
Which is not even the point of the podcast, but here we are.
Well, all right, let me tell you this then, because I used to have a hard time. You're gonna get this joke. I'm gonna have to explain it to them, but I had a hard time with like spoon and testicles.
Oh, cuillère, and couille. So
Exactly.
cuillère is spoon and couille is testicles.
Yes.
Well, a slang term, really. It's not like the proper term.
Yeah.
But in a way, it probably is also very proper because it has its roots in Latin. So, yeah,
Well, there you go.
etymology for you.
See, people, you're getting a lot out of Sean, and that's what you're gonna get out of this episode. But yeah, things like that I used to have a hard time with, and it's just like distinguishing those sounds of like,
Mm,
wait, which one? And then thankfully people put it together, so I haven't had any like embarrassing situations.
right.
But when I tell people that that's a problem area, they kind of look at me like, huh, okay. So Sean, you came here, you were teaching in French schools and had some, I mean, would you say you had difficulties really kind of getting into that system?
No, because I taught French before when I was in Trinidad and Tobago. So the teaching always comes easy to me. Like I always give advice to people. I'm always trying to help people be better. Trying to, uh, how do you say, I want to say a French term, and this is very difficult. Um, I really have no idea. But I know what to say. Okay, so it's like to draw out the best in someone, but really the idea of drawing it out, of finding that thing, holding on to it, showing that person where that thing is, and drawing it out of them until they become enveloped in it, and that is the better part of the person for tomorrow and for every day hereafter. And it's a constant work in progress. It's the idea that first of all, the only competition that you really have is yourself, and that the only thing that you ever really should have to do is become a better version of yourself every single day. And so a lot of people have problems finding that. And so what I like to do is to find that inside of the person because I have an external viewpoint, but also quite a holistic viewpoint if I know enough about the person. And then, yeah, show them, hey, take this, use this, and be a better you every day.
That's amazing. I feel like if you had stayed in teaching, not like as a language assistant,
Mm,
because there's no future in that, obviously, but
not stalk.
if you kind of listen, somebody else on this podcast, they're in Japan and they're like in middle management, and I'm like, listen, language assistants could never.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you had decided, okay, I'm going to stay in teaching, I think you would have been an amazing teacher. But I think, well, let me know. Maybe you would have found that extremely draining to do that every time with every single person.
I um I think it was when in my last 2 years anyway, I had a specialized advanced literature classes, and so I was the only teacher's assistant in that school, which is a very advanced school. They actually have like 5 different languages in that school.
Really?
Yeah, they even had Russian and Swedish. Oh
Oh,
no,
okay.
way more than 5 languages. They had Russian, Swedish, German, Italian, Spanish, English, French, obviously, and no, I think that's it. But yeah.
Yeah, way more than,
Way more than most schools. It
yeah.
was a very culture forward school. Um, and it was like it was one day I was teaching and it just came so easily to me, literature. And sometimes I just couldn't understand how people can't see the things that I see. And to be fair, it's something that I still struggle with. I like to take the shortcut, a bad shortcut, and say, oh, people are just not looking hard enough. But that's not true. We're not all built the same way. And when I think about it, I know that. But, sometimes you make like these rash judgments.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, and so I was teaching one day, and I said, I can't stop teaching, but I can't teach this anymore.
Okay, okay, I understand that. Okay.
And so what I love about what I do, because I'm a caviste now, so caviste is, in English, it sounds horrible because it's like a wine shop seller, but
Yeah.
that's not what I do. I do a lot more than
Yeah, and
that.
that's why I'm going to type even on the thumbnail like Kevis because I'm like, and I'm gonna be Kevis Sommelier because I'm like in English, you
Yeah,
sound just like a glorified alcoholic. So
exactly. And so what's interesting is that
or like
actually in my
barkeep.
right, so in my email signature, I actually put caviste sommelier. Even though I'm not a sommelier, but it's so that my English speaking people can kind of understand a bit more about what I do. Because the only difference between me and a sommelier is that a sommelier does service, which means that you're in the restaurant and you serve wine, etc.
Oh, okay.
And here I don't.
Yeah.
But I have to do all the same things. I have to taste tens of thousands of things to choose the right wines, to find what really fits in with my clients, and to learn about everything. To be fair, a lot of caviste, just like a lot of sommelier, uh, they not they might be passionate, but It's like anyone in the world, in any domain that you're into, there are always people who are way more passionate or obsessed, I like to say obsessed, about the domain than you are. And so there are many cavistes who don't actually care that much about all of the background, but I like to know and understand everything. And so to answer the question in a very long way about teaching, I
Hmm.
haven't stopped teaching. So one of the things about me being a caviste here, as well as my boss, is that we believe strongly in in French we say transmission de savoir et de connaissances. We transmit that knowledge. We don't keep it to ourselves. We explain to our clients, hey, this. Obviously, there's some clients who don't care, but we explain to them a little bit more. And there's a big language barrier in wine as well. And I don't mean between English and French.
Yeah.
It's about what regular people say and what actually is meant in the wine. And so there's a translation that needs to be done. So sometimes I have clients who come and they're like, I don't know what I like, but I like this, and I want this to be dry, but I don't want it. I want it to be dry and mineral. And I'm like, so fruit? And they're like, no, I don't like anything sweet. And I'm like, fruits have nothing to do with sweetness. It's like when you smell a strawberry, you're not smelling sugar, you're smelling the aroma of the strawberry.
Yeah.
You associate that to sugar because strawberries are sweet. But what's interesting is that lemons have more sugar than strawberries,
Okay.
but lemons are sour.
Yeah, exactly. You don't think of a lemon as like, oh, this is like very sweet.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you're telling me this and it just reminds me of all the times that you've had me drink something and then it's like obviously I can't describe it and you just tell like, okay, what do you taste? And you're like, and you sit and explain to me like,
Yeah.
okay, this is why and this is where that comes from.
Right. So this is what we call encadrement. So you explain to me from your point of view, and I help you. I guide that into the necessary jargon. Is jargon an English word?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It has still is This podcast is going great, and if anything, I'll just put subtitles or something for the people.
Oh my gosh. But like I said, authentic, natural, concise. I'm not being very concise, to be fair.
I mean, it's a podcast, so I mean, you're
Yeah.
not meant to be like the absolute most concise. I do
Right.
want you to like talk. Okay. Well, now you brought up your wonderful job as a caviste,
Yeah.
and I want to talk to you about transitioning from language assistant to the field that you actually want to be in. Well,
Right.
the field you want to be in, but I want to backpedal because technically you wanted to go into food first, I believe.
I did want to go into food first. So I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen, literally on the countertop. And I mean, I was spoiled. Like I was the first grandchild, so I was spoiled.
Oh, you could do anything.
Yeah, I could do anything. First grandchild and a male. Oh my God, the heir of the family,
You were running the house.
running the house. And because at a young age they realized that I was very kind of like the breadwinner, except that I'm not the breadwinner because I'm not even in the family anymore.
Yeah.
My entire family is away from here. I've been in France 7 years by myself. Um, but they always like gave me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know what I mean? And even though we weren't well off, I still had that idea of generosity.
Hmm.
And I used to say that my grandmother can make anything out of just ants. Like, if we have no food, she would just find it and she can feed like like
The whole
everyone.
village.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I don't know how she did that. But I learned by living alone how one does that.
Okay. There's the part, listen, when you are in another country and you are broke, you'll be surprised at what you can do.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's like what is it? What's in necessity of, oh, I forgot.
Um,
There's a phrase in
I
English.
know what you're saying.
Something is necessity is the mother of invention. There
There
we
you
go.
go.
And that is so true.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you really don't realize what a need is until you really have just the need and you have no more wants.
Yeah.
And it's traumatic, but in a way that pushes you to become a better you.
Oh, trust me, the last year of my life has taught me that.
Yeah. And it's crazy because if you survive, and usually that's kind of what you do, you survive.
Yeah, because you have to.
This is me pouring wine, guys.
Again, experience. Look at that ASMR. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Um, yeah, it's so that's what I wanted to do, but then I realized halfway through my how do you say formation?
Training.
My training, Jesus Christ. Um, training to be Jesus Christ, mind you. I'm joking, joking, joking. Don't cancel me, guys.
Oh my God, just like that, my podcast is canceled. Dang it!
Um,
This is gonna be the last episode.
to be fair, if it were your last episode, you're going out with a bang.
True. What a great way to go, and at least there's liquor. Come on.
Mm. Um, so I learned halfway through that if you don't have the money to go to a really good school, basically you'll be treated like beep for like 20 years of your life until you can do what you want to do. And I am very empowered by creation, by creating anything. You give me 10 seconds of pure peace, and all I'm going to do is create. And sometimes that means destroying to create, but I'm going to do something. And I just can't. Monotony is not something I'm really good at. I do have some rituals that I keep. For example, every morning I make a coffee, just like my grandmother used to make coffee when I first stole her coffee at 8 years old. It's a bit less sweet because she used to put condensed milk in her coffee, but I don't do that. Um, so I've elevated her version of the coffee. So I have this ritual that I've kept for so many years, which helps me in the morning to acclimatize to waking up to the world. But other than that, I don't have this idea of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I just can't. I hate it. I hate it so much. So I decided I don't want to leave food, but what if I go into wine?
Okay. Okay. Why wine exactly?
Because in France, the gastronomical, is that a word? Gastronomic?
Gastronomy is a word.
Gastronomy is a word.
So
So
great.
gastronomical can be a word.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Okay, it's like astronomical, but with a G, guys. Gastronomical. Um, uh, so in that version of culture, French culture is very wine based, and yet it isn't very wine based. It's interesting because perhaps only 1% of French people really understand anything about wine. And you wouldn't think that as a foreigner. Like, I thought people knew a lot more about wine.
Yeah.
Um, and the more I learned about wine, the more I realized that people know nothing about wine. And it's not to insult them, but it's just that we have this idea exteriori. Sorry, I speak Latin sometimes, guys.
He
From
will
the
throw a
outside.
lot of languages at you in this episode because I know you were also doing Japanese at one point.
Yeah.
You were doing a lot of listen.
Literally, I was trying to limit it because in my head, for example, like when we were talking about kui, I was going to like explain how kui and kui in Italian, blah 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 blah, and I was like, no, stop, Sean, stop, stop.
Please. You're so concise, please. I think it's gonna be a
Yeah.
bitch, but yeah. Thank you.
And by the way, as a small anecdote, my at the bakery which I that I go to all the time, the owner's wife and so also the co-owner, she's Japanese. So every time I go to the shop, I actually order in Japanese. So it's pretty funny.
Sean. Sometimes I just want to be a fly on the wall of your life.
Oh gosh, even I don't want to be a fly on the wall of my life. Oh my gosh. I think the entropy of my life, the chaos of my life is is why my life is so glamorous to a lot of people because it's so mysterious. Like, how are you so chaotic?
Hmm.
And I think like so many times in my life I've tried the most to be the most normal, and I hated that I couldn't be more simple, more normal, more unassuming, more I don't know, boring, I suppose.
That's not you, Sean.
Exactly.
He says to me
Exactly.
now, and I'm like, who the hell would be that man?
I know, and I think that's why I've gone so far so fast. Why I'm able to do things that a lot of people can't do. It's because even though I still lament sometimes. I mean, who uses the word lament? Jesus Christ.
I love how you were losing your English, but then you went to Old English. I love that for you. Keep going, please. Get biblical with it.
Um, yeah, but sometimes I do lament that I still can't be a bit more simple because sometimes simplicity just annoys the fuck out of me. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say it on the podcast.
Listen, everybody swears. Listen, at some point we cursed out Americans and white people, and then I say nigga a lot. So go ahead.
Okay, I mean, you can. So sometimes I do lament it, but in being me, I'm able to do things that put it this way. If someone met me 2 years ago and we've only spoken once, if we see each other today, they remember me 100%.
Yes.
That's not always good, by the way.
Absolutely.
I can't commit a single crime.
Oh, definitely not. No.
I will be found in 10 seconds.
Law-abiding person who has ever existed, honestly, because like, oh, we know.
What's funny is, I've stolen glasses from bars,
It's hilarious.
I'm
Which,
saying that softly.
which unfortunately I accidentally broke one, so
The good thing about my job is I have almost infinite glasses. Like it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, so it's fine.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we took a very long roundabout way.
I know, Jesus Christ.
Again, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. This is
So
a
much for
podcast.
being concise.
Exactly. Let's blame it on the liquor, even though none of us are drunk still.
I suppose I'm not so concise because maybe it's been a long time that someone has asked me about my parcours, as we say, like how I came from this to this.
Yeah.
And I guess this is a platform where I'm able to really express myself, so that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I find you extremely interesting. I mean, the people by now should find you extremely interesting.
I hope so.
I hope so. But I mean, I've always found your journey really interesting, and the reason I wanted to talk to you is because, I mean, the point of my podcast is to share, like, people's stories, living abroad,
Right.
making this new life for themselves. Still going, yeah.
No, it's not that. I was just watching how your laptop says 8:37 a.m. I thought you're still in Jamaica.
Yeah, that's actually no problem, and I just never get around to changing it. I'm always like, I really should change that. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So I always know what time it is for everybody else, basically.
Right.
But yeah, I really wanted to talk to you because I think that, yeah, your life, I guess, seems glamorous and things, but I find it so interesting that it's like you just, to me, what it looks like is you just came from Trinidad and you just thrived here, and I'm
Yeah.
like, how?
I know everyone tells me that I make everything look easy. And I think that's um it's not a horrible point of view, but I do make everything look easy. I do things with poise and grace. That's true. I'm like some kind of ethereal goddess or something like that, like
He is very ethereal, yes.
and it's funny because with the ethereal part, there's like this cosmic chaos, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically for you to get the light of stars from a galaxy, there needs to be destruction and chaos and creation. And I know, sorry guys, I'm very philosophical.
It's what makes him so interesting, though.
And I think it's that, but people only see the light.
Yeah, exactly.
They see the beauty of the photo. They're like, oh, nebula, nova. Ah, that's so pretty, right?
Yeah. They didn't see when it became like, a gas giant and collapsed onto itself and exploded. Yeah.
Exactly right. So they miss all those parts. And that's fine, But I don't try to pretend to be perfect either. Like, I mean, I've made many mistakes in my life, and I've done lots of things. Like, for example, I got kicked out of a bar the other day. But it's interesting.
It's interesting. PC wants to know why, but I'm like, I'm not gonna, even though the people might also want to know why. But
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Okay, so.
And we'll be back after these messages.
You said food, it's not gonna be in France for.
Let's get into wine, yeah.
Yeah, let's get into wine. Which, I mean, even you're saying that, and unfortunately, a thing that at least I've noticed, and probably people living in France have noticed, is that there's a lot of like systems that it very much is, if you don't abide by this and you don't do things the quote correct way, there's basically no way to do it. For example,
Yeah.
I want to get into journalism, and then it's like, well, if you don't go to the schools and you don't do this and you don't do that, it's a whole thing, and it's like, why? And that's, I
Yeah.
think, one of the most restrictive parts of
Yeah.
being in France, where you feel like I don't have as much. You do have freedom, like more freedom than I
Yeah.
had in Jamaica,
Of course.
surely. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not French. I can't exactly easily access these parts. And like you said, if you don't have the money, if you don't have this, don't have
Yeah.
that, even for me, the language barrier, it's like that means you can't really ascend as far as possibly you could or you would have hoped to.
And I think those are great points. And this is probably why I excel, because I look at the system and I say, fuck you.
Hmm.
I break it apart, and I find the least systematic way of abiding by the system.
Okay.
And that way I don't have to stop being me, but I also don't have to break apart every part of the system. Only the core parts need to remain for me. Because everything needs a system anyway. Like,
Yeah.
if not, then everything is just more chaos, and the chaos does not need more chaos, guys. But for example, I did, so in French, it's what we call a reconversion professionnelle. So you convert your career, basically, so you become something else. And just to show you how I broke the system, so there's a international diploma called WSET, and there's levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And usually to do level 2, you need to do level 1, and to do level 3, you need to do level 2. I decided that I don't want to waste time, so I applied directly to do level 3. They asked me to do a test d'admission, so to see if I had the level really to do level 3. And I had it. I got it. So I skipped levels 1, 2, went straight into level 3. So that's the first part of how I broke the system.
All right.
And what I did was, while I was doing level 3, I decided to go to, so in France, you have, it's basically like an expo. So we call them salons de dégustation. So you get to taste, you do wine tastings. Lots of people come from all over the world sometimes just to do these wine tastings, and sometimes just to be drunk and to drink great things.
Yeah.
For example, I did one it's by Béthane et de Souvre, and it's in end of November or December. This was one of the big ones I did. And they're literally Americans that take plane tickets to come here to France to spend 2 days because it only costs €35.
Oh, okay.
And then they get to drink like
Everything.
really high quality wines for basically nothing.
Yeah.
Because if they had to do it in the States, it would cost way more.
Of course.
So the plane ticket, it didn't make a difference, Like,
Yeah, basically that's what you
it's
put
still
towards the
cheaper.
liquor, like.
Yeah, it's still cheaper. And oh, look at this Corbeau. Corneille. Sorry, there's like this huge
A
crow.
crow. Yeah.
A huge crow, and it's so beautiful. Hi.
Oh, I haven't heard company in a long time.
Um,
But yeah, so you're at your salon. Continue.
yeah, and so I did that. I went to a lot of those things, but this is before I was professional. So I didn't have access to professional ones. I only went to public ones like this. And I did as much as possible. I tried to understand as much as possible. And even looking back at that 2 years ago, I know that at that point in time, I knew nothing. And it's funny because even where I'm at today, and I know way more than the majority of people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say the majority, I mean 99.99999% of people in the world about
I mean,
wine.
you said that like French people don't understand wine as much as you would think they would, so
I know they
not
really
surprised.
don't. And even people who work in wine, lots of them don't understand wine that much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I still feel like I know nothing.
But I feel like that's the Dunning-Kruger effect of it all.
Gosh, perhaps. I don't know. It's the world of wine, and it's not just wine because I'm also proficient in spirits and everything. Because as a caviste, it's not just about wine. I have to understand every liquid that has alcohol, and in France, even sometimes that includes water. I know it's not a liquid with alcohol, but sometimes that includes water. I have to know like different sources of water. So we don't say sources, springs.
Okay.
Different springs of water, where this water comes from, why it's like this, is it sparkling or not? I have to be able to recognize vineyards with just a photo. I have to be able to recognize a wine just from the taste. And FYI, almost no one in the entire world can recognize an exact wine just by taste. I know it looks like that when you look at competitions online.
Yeah.
That's not true. I was there for the world's best sommelier competition last year. It was in Paris at Nanterre.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far from you.
I've moved, but yeah.
Oh, you moved. Yeah,
I'll
okay.
tell you about it after.
Okay, tell me about it after. And it's funny because no one guessed the wines. No one. But someone still had to win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But no one guessed the wines correctly.
So they just keep drinking until there's a tiebreaker?
No. No, there are many different parts. Like tasting is just one part of everything that we have to do.
Oh, okay.
There's a part about service. There's a part about knowledge. wine knowledge is extremely important.
Like about like what regions this comes from and stuff like that.
Exactly. And
Okay.
and that's still very grossier. That's very large. It's very
Yeah.
vague.
See, that's why I could call it out because I'm like I can't get into the nuance of it. I don't know it.
And it's interesting because j just to give you guys an idea, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what Chardonnay is and everyone knows what Sauvignon Blanc is, maybe.
Mm.
And if you don't, the most international white grape varieties, they are known, they've been planted all over the entire world. And what's interesting is that a Sauvignon Blanc from a specific region in a cold year can seem like a Chardonnay from another region in a warm year. And this is why it's so hard to correctly guess what you're drinking.
You would have to have tons of context basically to know like when it was produced and all of that essentially. So you couldn't just taste it and know.
Right. So this year I've already done more than 10,000 unique tastings. So when I say unique, it means that I only count if I taste the same thing twice, I don't count it. I only count it once.
Okay.
More than 10,000 unique tastings. I stopped counting after 10,000. That was my goal.
Okay.
And to be able to do that, you need to not just do more than 10,000 a year. You need to also taste the same thing.
In order to be able to distinguish it?
Exactly. So let's put this into context. One winemaker probably has 10 different wines. You need to taste those 10 wines in 20 different years to understand that winemaker.
The people cannot see me right now, but just know that my mouth is agape because I'm like, what in the hell am I hearing?
So you basically have to taste 200 wines.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You can't just taste it once. So you can't do the 200 wines in a week and then remember it. No, you need to taste the 200 wines
Basically
this year,
memorize it.
next year, or the year after. To really be precise. And that's just one winemaker.
Exactly. That's what you're telling. You basically have to understand the entire career of this one winemaker over the course of several years just to taste that. And then you're talking about, obviously, there are like tons of winemakers.
Of course. And this is why it's almost impossible to really correctly guess a wine.
Okay.
You can guess, what a lot of people think is that when we do tastings, is that we have to guess what the wine is. That's not the idea of the tasting. The tasting is you have to create a hypothesis of what the wine is.
Okay.
And you have to justify that hypothesis, sorry, and you have to be coherent in your justification.
Okay. Okay.
So when I taste, for example, let me do one quickly with you guys while I'm here. So I know what it is, but I'm showing you what it's like. So I'm going to smell this, and I smell lots of fruits, but I also smell a bit of freshness. But because of the fruits, I'm going to say that it comes from a southern region of France, because we have more sun. I have a nice acidity, but not too much. A lot of roundness. So I think that coherently, if I have to guess, I'm still going to stick to the southern region of France. Because more roundness comes from a greater maturity, the ripeness of the grape. And then you get that mouth feel, which is kind of round. Now, I'm going to be technical here, guys. Stay with me. So there's a slight buttery note. The buttery note comes from what we call malolactic fermentation. So malolactic fermentation is so after your fermentation, your alcoholic fermentation. So this is where the yeasts eat the sugar in the grape juice, basically.
Yeah.
To turn it into alcohol and carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
The carbon dioxide escapes. If we don't allow it to escape, it becomes a bubbly wine.
Okay.
Right.
Explains it.
All right. And so so we have this, and after that, perhaps the wine would be too acidic. So all red wines in France must undergo malolactic fermentation.
Okay.
This is where you introduce a bacteria, which is called Onococcus onei, if you guys want to know.
I'm hoping somebody listening to this is very interested and they're just hanging on by the edge of their seat listening to like, tell me more. Keep going.
And the Onococcus onei transforms the malic acid. Malic comes from malus, which is the genus of the apple. So malic acid, which is very present in apples, which is very, very tart, but also very crisp.
Yeah.
And so while we don't mind having that in white wines in general, in red wines, it completely destroys the red wine. So we so it eats this and it transforms the malic acid into lactic acid, which is more round, which is more digestible. And so the entire expression is about reducing the entire acidity expressed in H2SO4, sulfuric acid, of the wine, so that it becomes more agreeable to the taste. But in white wines,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the taste of yogurt or butter or
Yeah, which
milk.
is kind of what you want, like you said, that crispness that you want in a white
Yeah.
wine, or that you tend to find in a white wine.
Right, but so here there's a bit of malolactic fermentation to create more roundness.
Ah, okay.
Because so if I didn't have to look at it, but I knew that this wine was young, 2023. I knew it was into 2022 because in 2022 we had more sun. We don't need malolactic fermentation. But
The
in
fact that you're even
2023,
telling me based off this taste that like, oh, we didn't have as much sun, you had to know that. I'm like, what?
oh yeah, 2023, however, we had a lot more rain. It was a colder year, which is why we have this crispness, sorry. But we did the malolactic fermentation. I say we like if it's me, but you know.
Yeah.
Um,
You're part of that group. It is a we. God.
yeah, we did the malolactic fermentation just to create a more round feeling. Because we don't want a wine that when you drink it, it tastes like vinegar. We
Yeah,
want a
exactly.
wine that is pleasing. Like I say, that my motto is the point of making wine is to make good wine in the end. If you don't make good wine, stop making wine.
Yeah, exactly. You want it. I mean, even you're saying that, and I mean, like, you've explained this entire process, which we're going to come back to because even that was amazing to watch. But you're saying all of that, and at the end of the day, like, for me, I just drink this and I'm like, oh, white wine, yum. And for I think most people, it really is like, does it taste good?
I will show you the difference. So you say white wine yum,
Hmm.
but I'm going to show you the difference after this wine with a
Okay.
different glass. I'm going to get you another glass.
See, this is why I picked Sean. Sean always brings me an experience. There's liquor and I get scenery. I love it.
To be fair, I always say to people, if you work in this kind of industry and you don't try to create an experience, you should probably stop working in the industry. I know it sounds very categorical, like I said, the point of making wines to make good wine, and if you don't, you should stop. And just like this, I also say, if you don't try to create an experience, then stop working in this industry. Um, at the end of the day, we must not forget that your passion in winemaking is not so that you can feed it to robots. It's so that you can feed it to humans.
Yeah.
And even the idea of food, nourishment, it's to create an experience, a feeling within someone else. It is a sort of devotion. It is a sort of love, uh, sharing, passion. A wine can even be sensual, not sexual, but sensual.
Hmm.
There's this. We talk often about mouthfeel, but in reality, a wine should should tickle your brain and should warm your heart.
Huh, okay.
And you know a really good wine because when you taste it, you are silent. The best wines shut off everything in your head
Because you're just so focused and just struck by that.
because you are so struck by it that you just can't. You can't even explain it.
Yeah.
In French, we have a term. It's called émotion psychosensorielle. It means mind, feeling, emotion. It's to explain that when a wine doesn't just give you pleasure, it's beyond that. It's a sublimation of pleasure. And very few wines do this, but the best wines all do.
Wow. No, Sean, you don't understand. I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, what did I just witness? No,
And that's just the explanation of that.
no, but this is sitting here and I'm just like, what did I just
Well, yeah.
see?
I'm actually going to write a book, but I'm not going to say what it is exactly.
You absolutely should write a book.
I've started the outline of the book.
Okay.
Started trying to figure out how to put it together because I have, if anyone hasn't realized, I'm sure all of you have, I can't say one thing without thinking of 100 other things. And so I keep rebounding, and I can't just have one straight conversation. The entire universe is my conversation. So it's kind
Yeah, which is, like I said, great for podcasting. Sucks for my editing, and I guess sucks for a book if you're just gonna write this tome. But yeah.
Yeah.
But it's even like just witnessing this, and I mean, this comes back to a point that you made earlier about like becoming obsessed with something.
Oh, I'm obsessed.
We just heard the obsession.
I'm so obsessed. It's not
I
funny.
just witnessed the obsession with my own eyes. The people have heard it, and I'm just like, wow,
Yeah.
this is amazing. And I mean, at least knowing you, I know that you, I don't want to say necessarily you take the same obsession with everything, but I know that you do put a lot of into everything that you do. You
I
put a lot of
do
your own soul
put
into
a
it.
lot of energy. It almost seems like I'm inexhaustible, which is very false. It's just that when you see me, I'm inexhaustible. But when you don't see me, it's because I'm exhaustible.
Oh no! Listen, Remember we learned that you shut off at like 9 or 10 p.m. or something like that.
I mean, it depends on the day. It's just that 2 days in a row now, there's a moment where I have to shut off. If I don't, then I can't. I just can't. Full stop.
Oh no, trust me. I've learned recently that I'm like, oh, I need to turn off at some point because I feel like I'm gonna bash my head into the wall. So
Yeah. No,
that
you
was
have
fun.
to. You have to.
Yeah.
Before that was my Sunday, which is really hard for me.
Hmm.
This is why I'm often late on a Sunday
Yeah.
at work, which my boss hates.
Hmm.
But Sunday for I don't know how many years, basically 20, 30 years of my life was that. To change that is so hard.
And I mean, I think that's a very Caribbean thing, though. I think because, like, for Sundays, it's like
Yeah.
you're not supposed to do anything on a Sunday in the Caribbean. Like, you're not gonna get anything done.
No, it's not the same for me because Sunday morning at 6 a.m. my mother used to wake me up so that I could help her cook.
Okay.
So no, not exactly.
All right. Okay.
But when I came to France, I mean, I would help her cook and then I would just go back upstairs and hide and just like relax.
Okay.
And so in France, I did the same thing. Like I would just disappear.
Mhm.
Like Sunday was a day that I could literally do nothing. I would just eat a bag of chips. For those of you who don't know, 592 calories approximately for an entire bag of chips in France. And no, wait, sorry, 592 by 100, but it's normally 125, so it's about 700 and something. Sorry, guys. Yeah, my brain.
Listen, just go with it. Just go with it. It's a part of the experience.
And me pouring the new wine that she has to taste. And I'm actually going to guide her on this commentary, so we're going to talk about it. But let me get back to it.
Yes, please.
And I would just do nothing for the entire day. I would just like watch series for the entire day.
Yeah.
And Sunday, I just didn't exist. That was my whole thing. I don't exist on Sundays.
Yeah.
And now, in this job, not only am I obsessed, but I'm also called to be very responsible and to do so many things. I basically don't have days off
Yeah.
because Sunday I work, Sunday afternoon I'm free, but usually that's when I see friends. And
This
then
this is how we got him here.
this is how we got us here, yeah, for sure. And then Monday, when I'm supposed to be off, they're usually the professional wine tastings. So I'm not really that off. I still have to go to work and I have to taste. And while a lot of people would think, oh, it must be so nice, it must be so amazing, um,
It's still work for you.
it's work. It's literally work.
Yeah, it's not like you're just going there getting drunk. It's like, ah, this is great. Like, no,
No.
you're actually knowing you and everything we've learned. It's like, this is
Yeah.
actually studying. This is actually you putting in
Exactly.
energy into it.
And what's interesting is that, like I said, like I've tasted 10,000 unique tastings, but I want people to understand that the majority of things you taste aren't that great. And the more you taste, the more sophisticated your palate becomes. Actually, I don't like that word sophisticated. It makes it sound very elite. It's the more discerning your palate becomes.
Okay.
And so you know and it's not about what you like, by the way, in a professional setting, which is something I dislike about lots of people. Lots of professionals, they talk about what they like, and I'm like, that's not your job.
Yeah, exactly.
Your job is to find something that's objectively good and not about what you like.
Hmm.
I like things, but for example, in these 100 wines, oh, sorry, that's way more than 100 wines. In the 200 wines that you see, they're all objectively good.
Yeah.
But in just the reds that you see over there, I probably only really like 25%.
Okay.
But my job is not to sell what I like.
Yeah, exactly.
My job is to sell what you like.
Yeah, you have to decide what I like, figure that out, and then give me
Exactly.
that. Because if you might like something I hate. So
Exactly. And so understanding your client, it's like I say, it's about the experience. It's not about me, it's about you. Yes, it's also easier to sell something that I like with someone who shares the same kind of vibe as me.
hmm
But if I'm incapable of creating an experience for someone who doesn't like a wine that I like, am I good at my job?
And this comes back to your point before about like if you can't create an experience, then I mean, why are you in this job? Or you need to
Yeah.
get out. And it all comes. See, eventually it takes a while, but it all comes back. Okay.
I want you. Oh, she's gonna taste now. I'm gonna taste with her. She has two glasses. And it's important because, I mean, I don't need because I finished the other one, but I have the memory of the wine, so it's fine. I can compare without having to taste them. But this is what we call a comparative tasting. So it's going to help you refine your palate and your idea about wine by tasting two different wines. Not only are they two different wines at two different temperatures, can you tell us about the color?
Okay, so the first one that you had poured me when I first
Yeah.
came, so that one is definitely a lot paler.
Yes.
So this one is definitely a lot more golden.
Ah.
The new one that you've poured
Yeah.
me
Perfect.
is a lot more golden.
Okay. Perfect.
Um,
No, that's okay. I mean,
okay,
we don't need to get more into color.
all
Color
right.
is not very in depth. Like we don't care that much in wine.
Okay, all right.
Now, can you smell the first one
Okay.
and tell me what you think without trying to do anything? Just what you think directly, your first thought.
Light.
Light. Okay. Next one.
Pungent. A little stinky.
Right. Pungent, a little stinky. Okay. So two completely different wines.
Yeah.
Now, these two wines actually come from the same region. So in France, we have many different regions. They both come from the southwest region.
Okay.
And they both come from fresh years. So fresh years meaning that we have more rain and less sun.
Okay.
But they don't have anything in common apart from fresh years and the same region. So the first one is 2023. They're very young,
All right.
which also helps in his likeness. Uh, he's only 1 year old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe feel like I'm killing like a child or something. Ah.
It's only 1 year old. And the second one, 2021, which was almost a horrible year in France.
2021 was rough for a lot of reasons. So,
I think the weather was on board.
so I mean, it wasn't just the wine that suffered, but yeah.
No. But it's funny because 2021, if you, without getting into too much detail, I've done that a lot already. 2021 was a year for wine growers that if you didn't panic, you made amazing wine. But if you panicked, your wine, we can sense the panic in your wine.
What do you mean?
You know how you have this age-old question, can you separate the art from the artist?
Yes.
In wine, you can't.
Okay.
When you
Okay.
make wine, it's literally you who becomes that wine.
All right.
And you can literally tell a young winemaker, and when I say young, I don't mean by age, but
Like they're new
how
to it.
long you've been doing it, by the taste of the wine. You can tell when someone panics. You can tell when someone wasn't sure about their wine.
Oh, okay.
You can taste it. I mean that comes with a lot of experience, obviously,
Of
like.
course, yeah.
But I don't know how else to explain it, but it's there. There's this intuition, there's this instinct, there's this. There's so much stuff that I can't explain, guys.
This is again, this is why this is amazing to watch. Okay, so I'm trying.
I feel sorry for the guys who can't watch.
Now PCB is kind of like, I wish this was a video podcast. I'm so sorry. You know what? Next season, maybe we'll go video. I don't know.
Next season.
And then everybody who's been on has to come back.
Right. Have I taught you how to grumer
Uh,
when you do this?
yes, you have. Okay.
Okay, so going back to the wines, guys, I want you to grume the first one,
Okay.
and you can swallow just a little bit. It's always just a little bit when you grume. Okay, swallow and tell me what you think.
Okay. Uh, so it tasted sweet. I
Okay,
would say like midway through it tasted sweet.
right.
Towards the end it kind of gave me a sense of like alcohol, like ethyl
Right.
alcohol.
Okay,
So it gave me that sense as well.
okay.
You just sniffed it just to check.
Yeah, I sniffed her wine to understand what she was saying and why she was saying it. Because like I said, it's about translation as well. I need to understand where her point of view comes from so that I can guide it to become more evolved. Not saying that you're primitive, but you know.
But I mean, to be fair, my experience with wine, I would say but
Yeah.
that's me saying it about myself. But yes, so I would say I definitely got the sense of just alcohol and it was sweet.
Okay. So this is a perfect example of how aromas change our perception. There is less than 2 grams of sugar per liter in this wine, which is imperceptible to the palate. Literally, it's perceptible only if you drink it in water. You would see that your water is different,
Yeah.
but only in water. In wine, it's not very perceptible. The idea of sweetness comes from the aromas of the wine. May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, so here we have citrus, but we also have peach. And the peach is very floral here. So it's more like white peaches, not like yellow peaches. We also have flowers, lots of flowers, like acacia flowers and also honeysuckle. And all of these things create this idea of sweetness, even though there's no sweetness, which is why it's so interesting.
I need to point out that he did all of this just by smelling it. I tasted it and all I got was sweet. He's telling me all this from sniffing it.
Um, so good. Okay, now let's go on to the next wine.
All right, the next wine, which is the second one you poured for me,
Yes.
that I said had a pungent smell
Golden, yeah.
and was golden.
Right.
Okay.
So you're going to Grum again.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So that actually reminded me of apples.
Okay.
So it reminded me of your talk about, apples and the process of the bacteria and everything, because it gave me that same crispness.
Mm-hmm.
Not really an apple taste, but definitely the crispness and freshness that I get from apples. But I definitely didn't get the same taste of like alcohol that this one gave me when I
Right.
did it.
So I'm going to explain a little bit about the science behind it. We got more alcohol from the first one because it's been a while since it's been in the glass. She's not drinking a lot. Compared to me, by the way.
I feel
Which,
very ashamed right now.
to be fair, almost no one drinks as much as I do.
Oh, trust me. Listen, nights out with Sean, you can't do that every night. It's a lot.
But so the first one is warmer, and so the warmth creates a greater alcohol perception.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second one is that it's cooler. I just took it out of the fridge.
Yeah, exactly. This one has been
So-
sitting here for as long as we've been recording.
Yeah. So this one we don't have that alcohol perception. And the apple part, I like what you said because yes, apples, it's more complex than that, but it's more about oxidated apples. You know, like when you leave an apple out on the counter for a bit
Yeah.
and it gets that oxidated kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit more complex. It's about a molecular change kind of in this aroma base, let's say. And what's interesting is we also have here, I don't know how many of our listeners have tried, how do you call this? The ruche.
Yosh.
The ruche, oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know that one.
Oh my. Honeycomb. Jesus Christ.
Honeycomb. Oh, okay.
Honeycomb.
I didn't even know that one. Okay. Thank you. I got a new word.
Ruche is technically the honey nest. No, honey. How do you say honey nest?
You mean hive?
Hive. Jesus Christ. Honey nest. My God. I just should stop.
From now on, just the subtitles, guys.
Honey nest.
We're closed captioning from now on.
And so like if you've had, if you've eaten I forgot the word, the ruche.
The honeycomb.
Honeycomb. If you've had the
I was
honeycomb.
about to say hive, and I said you shouldn't eat a hive. Please don't eat a hive.
No, but it's kind of like eating the hive when you eat the honeycomb, actually.
Yeah,
'Cause
but like
it's-
when I think of hive, I think the bees flying around, and I'm like, that's not a good
Oh,
idea.
right. Yeah, of course. And you have that, it's not about the honey, it's more about the wax, the waxy part. You know, like if you eat the honeycomb, you have the wax and the honey in your mouth.
I mean, like people probably know like beeswax, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ever like, this may be only for women, but like if you've ever tasted like beeswax, use a product like lip balm with beeswax in
Of
it.
course, of course, of course. Exactly. But we still have that sweet note, which is interesting because how dry would you say it is on your mouth?
I would not have said that it was particularly dry. Maybe more. Let me try again.
And for the dryness, look at the end of your mouth. Not look at, you know what I
The
mean.
taste. Okay.
Look at the end of your mouth.
Okay. Well, now that you brought that up, because yeah, I would say that the dryness, I wouldn't, it's not as dry as I would expect the red wine to be,
Right.
but the dryness definitely came like towards the end of the taste.
Right.
So when at the very front, I would say that's where I got the sweetness, but the apple taste, the oxidized apple that you were
Right.
saying definitely came at the very end.
Right. And so this is what we call astringence or astringence. That's an
Yeah.
English word, I think.
Let's
Astringence.
say that it is, yeah. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
fact check him.
So this is astringence, which comes from the skin of the grape.
Hmm.
So a lot of people don't talk about tannins in white wine. We talk about it only in red wine, which is why you talk about more dryness in red wine.
Yeah. And that's where it comes from?
That's what it comes from. It comes from three things. It comes from the stem, it comes from the skin, and it comes from the seed.
Okay.
But each thing gives you a different kind of tannin. Tannin is an easy word to use, but it's a very difficult word to understand because tannin is a whole regroupement. It's like an umbrella of thousands, if not millions, of molecular compounds
Okay.
that all fall into different families. So in red wines, the thing that gives red wines its color is a tannin called anthocyanin, which by itself is just blue. So one day, just spill some red wine on white paper
Okay.
and leave it to breathe, and you'll see that the red becomes blue. That's why it's called anthocyanin, cyan, blue.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So it's called antho because it's a precursor.
And I know that that ending feels very abrupt, but trust me, it was the perfect ending because if you believe it, we knocked over a mic and there ended my wine tasting on air. But I promise you there's more to come next week when we have the final episode of season 1, ending with Schon. We're going out with a bang on this one. So join me and Schon next week. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening.